My name is Paige. I believe I'm still the only medical chef educator out there. So my job title is medical chef educator. I am a professionally trained chef. I was trained at the Art Institutes of Philadelphia. I have my bachelor's of science in culinary management. I'm sure at some point you've come across the dilemma of, well, my child doesn't swallow pills and I have all these epilepsy meds or vitamins or anything else that they need to take. Well, yeah, you can crush them up. You can mix it in some yogurt. You can mix it with some water and give it as a syringe, or you can have them start practicing swallowing pills. So, of course, you're not going to do it with real pills. And typically, over here at least, we usually practice with Tic Tacs. Tic Tacs are made with all sugar, so not ideal for the ketogenic diet. Our solution is to make little butter pills. So if you were to melt butter in a bowl, take a little sandwich bag or a piping bag if you have one, pour the butter into the sandwich bag, kind of like make like a little piping bag out of it, snip the tip so this way the butter can drip out of the bottom, and literally just pipe like little tiny pills on parchment paper. So you're making little tiny pills, pop it in the fridge or the freezer, and they can practice using that. The good news is that if it gets stuck, it'll melt. And also, it's fat, so you don't have to worry about them having any extra sugar or anything like that. And I mean, like, make little tiny pills. They're not having like, a whole tablespoon per pill or anything. It's going to be little tiny pills. So that is a really great alternative for pill swallowing. I see families from all different demographics and socioeconomic statuses, and this is, especially in today's day and age, this is definitely a concern. So the way I look at it is, how much are you spending on food now? Whether you're buying all organic and you're shopping at the nicest grocery stores, or if you're buying maybe like lower budgeted food just to make ends meet, at the end of the day, you're still buying food. So whether that cost equates to the amount of starting a new diet, I mean, it's really not that much more. So, for example, your child is going to eat no matter what. Whether they're eating the same thing you're eating, whether you're buying them fast food, or whether you're giving them something on the keto diet, it's still going to be honestly about the same amount of money. The only difference really is the upfront costs and the time you put in. So and another thing I'll say is, if you are buying, like how you said, keto bars and all kinds of specialized ingredients, yes, it's going to be more expensive. But also think about that with regular food too, non-keto food. If I'm buying a whole bunch of fancy specialty diet bars, like let's say, I don't know, I'm on a weight loss diet and I'm buying all kinds of fancy stuff, yes, that's going to be expensive. But I'm choosing to do that instead of making my own fresh food. So any diet, like the keto diet, is not expensive. It's how you do it that can be expensive. So let's say you're a family who decides to make all their child's keto food from scratch, okay? Which honestly, all of my families are like that. We actually do not allow our families to purchase pre-made bars and all of that. But that's because we don't do net carbohydrates. We do total carbohydrates. A lot of those fancy bars out there, they subtract fiber and or sugar alcohol, which makes it so that way they can have more of something, which we are very strict. Nope, can't have those carbs. So every center is different though. I know some centers love those bars because they're convenient, and we know that it's 2021 and our families are on the go and we want everything convenient and made for you, which is fine. But know that you're going to spend more money. So I think there's pros and cons to both. So if you were to buy all these specialty bars and specialty pre-made foods and all of that, yeah, it's convenient. It's going to be made for you. You know exactly how many carbs are in there, how much protein, how much fat, what the ratio is. and you might not even have to weigh it. You can just pull it out of the container, put it in a little, like, you don't even have to open up the bag, and you can send it to your child's school for lunch, and it'll be easy peasy, not even really like a difficult diet. However, the cons to that is, one, in my opinion, I don't think those foods taste good. They are not very good substitutes. Oftentimes, I feel like they taste like protein powders. They're not really that palatable for day-to-day living. I think every once in a while it could be nice just to have something ready-made, but for every day, for the whole duration of however long they're on the diet, I mean, I couldn't see that. However, like I said, it's convenient. It's nice that it's already made. But the pros of making your own recipes, not only are you using like fresh whole foods, it's cheaper too, because you can buy just like regular vegetables, regular fruits, and you can shop sale items. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, this is a brand name and I have to get this brand name. It's just, no, you're getting broccoli, you can get the store's broccoli. What's also nice about that is you can make it taste more like your family's food. I think that's really important, because a lot of these kids and adults too, they know that this diet's different and they don't want to feel any different, because they shouldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's food. Food is unity. Like, think of holidays and stuff like that. What do we do when we're all together? We eat. And if your family is Hispanic and you're eating a whole bunch of fragrant, delicious Hispanic food, and then you pull out a keto bar, you're going to feel different naturally. I know I would. So if you're making your child's or your own keto food, you can season it however you want. You can put your own family flair into it. Not only that, but you can actually incorporate the fats you want into the recipe. So let's say your child's cholesterol is a little high and you want to focus on lowering saturated fats. Okay, well, you have the ability to do that if you're making your own recipes. Switch out mayo for oil, switch out butter for oil, or a vegan mayo. So you have the potential to do that. Circling back to what I was saying with the upfront costs. So the only thing about if you were to prepare your own food is the upfront costs with keto. So, but that honestly goes with any specialty diet. So if you just decided, oh, you know what, I'm going to go vegan tomorrow. Okay, let's just say that. Then yeah, you're going to spend a lot of money, because you're going to go to the store and you're going to have to buy all new ingredients. And it's going to be a big upfront cost. But as time goes on and as you're replenishing those ingredients, it's not going to be as expensive, because that's all you buy. Now, I mean, same thing goes with keto. Depending on what program you're from, you might have to invest in a scale, and scales can be pretty pricey. I know ones that are cheaper. They typically don't last very long. They might work for a long time, but are they really giving you accurate numbers for that long? So it's worth it to invest in a more expensive scale. All these specialty flours and specialty syrups and ingredients and all those fancy things, they can add up in the beginning. But like I said, as time goes on, you're not going to be spending that much, because they typically come in really big bags. So it really depends on how you look at it. I think that's the big thing. But overall, homemade cooking definitely has my vote. And I know that that's not feasible for every family, because, I mean, of course, time. But typically what I recommend for families is batch cook this food. Because honestly, if we asked families to cook food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, I don't think we would have compliance at all. But if you were to sit down every other Sunday and you were to just bust out a whole bunch of meals for your child and pop them all in the freezer, well, you're good for 2 weeks. You don't have to sit down and cook at all for them. And it's nice and simple and convenient. Just pull it out of the freezer, pop it in the toaster, pop it in the oven, or the microwave, whatever you use, and it's easy and ready to go. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the cost, except for maybe the upfront, or if you're doing specialty bars like you mentioned. So I know you mentioned dairy. Dairy allergies don't scare me. Dairy allergies, actually, we get quite a bit of them. Dairy allergies actually aren't that bad. for our program, at least. Everybody does something different, so I can't speak for all. However, whenever there's somebody that's dairy free, I typically just make it more animal protein focused. Instead of incorporating butter, which you can do margarine instead, or you can do some other like vegan butter alternative, you can do that, or just focus on oils and mayo. No heavy cream, even though heavy cream only contains like a small amount of that, but of course you would skip that. Now, I would really just focus on like maybe doing like scrambled eggs in the morning for breakfast, some bacon. For lunch, you can maybe you can either make your own bread out of almond flour and egg and dairy-free butter with some salt, or you can purchase one of those fancy loaves of keto bread, some deli ham, you would skip the peas. Dairy-free alternatives typically are very high in carbohydrate. So that's usually something that is quite a bit of a challenge. If the child wants cheese, which if they have a dairy allergy, they probably won't want cheese, but if that's ever the case, that's when it becomes a little tricky, because it is high in carbohydrates, so you'll have to kind of account for that as part of the carbohydrate allotment, even though it's in your head considered a protein because it's a cheese. So that can pose a challenge. Nut allergies can also be tricky because almond flour is typically the flour we use for pretty much all of our baked goods. There are other alternatives though, so nut allergies, they're not really that tricky because you can use something. I don't want to drop the brand name, but it's a gluten protein flour that's pretty good to use. If of course you can have gluten, but that's good for nut allergies. Coconut flour is pretty high in carbohydrate, but you can make that work if you need to. So there's a lot you can do with nut allergies. I think the scariest allergy, the one that I find to be the most challenging, is egg. When you throw an egg allergy in there, then we're really gonna be, let's get our creative boots on, because we're gonna have to come up with something crazy. There aren't really many egg substitutes. So if you look online, egg substitute, applesauce, mashed banana, all kinds of stuff like that. Well, I mean, not for the keto diet, you can't do that. So it gets really tricky. There are certain thickeners out there that might be able to help a little bit. Again, they do contain carbs though, so it's not a perfect solution, but maybe something like xanthan gum or soy lecithin that could help thicken it. But when it comes to actually baking something and holding everything together, that's when you need egg. So if you remember earlier how I said there's two ways to do the recipe. There's either baking the fat in there and hiding it completely, or having some oil and fat on the side, and that's your medicine. Well, that kind of rules out this option if they're allergic to egg, hiding the fats in the recipe. You can't really hide fat in a recipe without a binder. So yes, you can do a bunch of almond flour and dry out the fat a little bit. You can add in some applesauce as the carbohydrate, or mashed banana if you have the allotment of carbs to do so, but it's not going to be the same. So egg is definitely the biggest challenge. And then I do get a couple patients that come in and they're allergic to like dairy, egg, soy, the whole nine, and we figure it out though. I think the big thing is that families get scared out of trying something new because of all of the history that their child has with food allergies. And especially when we're talking about, okay, well, we know your child's allergic to X, Y, and Z, but we're going to throw this whole new specialty diet, fingers crossed, and hope for the best. These parents are already traumatized by how many side effects food has given them, and maybe how many times they've had to go to the hospital because of anaphylaxis or anything like that. So trying something new can definitely be tough. I think that's the biggest hurdle, not really finding ways to make it appropriate for the child. It's just really trying to like calm the nerves and the anxiety of, it's okay, like we're all in this together. That's when a team approach is really crucial, because it's just like, we can handle this. Like, give us what you want to do. Like, let us see what you typically do at home. Let us see the ingredients you use, and we're going to figure out a way to make this possible for your child. I think that's really important. So I think that restaurants have gotten a little bit more understanding when it comes to specialty diets, but mainly with allergies. I think that's when they're like, oh, you're allergic to that. Well, how allergic are you? Are we going to have to worry about this? And they take that seriously. But that's because they know the severity of it. It's kind of like in their head that like, okay, well, an allergy, you could die at the table. Like, we don't want that. So it's kind of like a built-in, like they know that could result in something serious. When you say I'm on the keto diet, or like, oh, does this have gluten in it? That's a good one too, because there's so many gluten sensitivities, or just like opting like, oh, I just want to cut gluten out of my diet. I feel like those bad diets they get a bad rep because they're not taken as seriously from some people. So really what's helpful is not only just saying to your server, but saying to the manager. So whenever you go into the restaurant, say, can I speak with your manager? I might not even tell the server, honestly, just because like there's not much that like every person in the restaurant can do. It's mainly going to depend on the manager and the cooking staff. Those are the two people that are most important in this process. So right when you come in, just tell the server, can I speak with the manager? I have very strict dietary restrictions. I just want to make sure it's followed very strictly and strategically because it's critical. So then when the manager comes, you can explain. I wouldn't even say the keto diet, honestly. I would just say, because even if you are on the keto diet, from my experience, whenever I say I do the keto diet, like for work, they're like, oh, I'm on the keto diet. And it's like, no, that's not what I mean. But so a lot of times, right when you say that word, it registers in their head, and they're not really taking anything else you say as seriously because they already know essentially what that diet is. But if they don't know and they don't understand, they'll take more caution doing it. So if you just say, my child or I am on a diet for epilepsy, and like it's medically prescribed, it's very specific. I actually have to weigh the food on this gram scale. This is basically my epilepsy medication. You can say it kind of like that. Epilepsy is a scary word. So if you drop that word and you tell them how serious it is, that like, listen, it's at the end of the day, like, don't worry, it'll all be okay. Like, I'm fine. You can still serve me food just fine, but I just want to make sure that you know that like my chicken needs to be plain. My broccoli needs to be plain. I need to have this on the side. So this way it's not like, oh, it's okay. Like she's fine. Just put it on that. There's more care taken. And when you're explaining this to the manager too, the manager will go back to the kitchen then and relay the message. If you were to relay all this information to the server, servers are very busy. They'll I'm sure they'll understand, but they might not relay it to the full capacity as what a manager will do, because the manager's job is literally to do this stuff. So if you were to tell the manager all of this and drop the word keto, but add in the word epilepsy, like this is a medical epilepsy diet, this is my medicine, then that could be taken much more seriously. We dropped the name Atkins. We just do Modified Ketogenic Diet because I feel like a lot of times when we affiliate it with Atkins, then people start thinking weight loss. So we just do Modified Keto, and typically with older populations. So teenagers, young adults, older adults, Modified Keto is definitely the way to go. Classical Ketogenic Diet is much more challenging. It's much more challenging in the sense that you can't really have like a keto bar or something like that, like we were talking earlier, or at least I'm very strict with the classical ketogenic diet. So it might be a little bit more strict than what others consider classical. But you can't really have pre-made stuff because those ratios, they're not always accurate. Sometimes, but like if you're on the modified ketogenic diet, you can use specialty used products, because then it's easier to convert the nutrition label. You can just look at it and be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to subtract the fiber, and I can have this for this amount of carbohydrates or this serving size. However, the classical diet is definitely easier with younger populations because it's so strict that, first of all, with younger populations, typically there's somebody that's making it for them. So it takes significant compliance. The parent or the caretaker or whoever is preparing the food has to be significantly driven in order to make all the classical ketogenic foods. Just because you're using the gram scale, you're weighing everything to the nearest tenth of a gram, you're calculating meal plans. It's a lot of work that goes into it. If it's an older person, maybe like an adult or a teenager, they might not be as willing to sit down and calculate all those meal plans and then weigh out all the food, whereas they could just take 1 cup of almond flour, 1 egg, and do it that way. So I think that those are the two big differences. It also depends on seizure frequency, though, as well. The classical ketogenic diet is much more effective than the modified ketogenic diet, just because it's more strict. You have much more compliance because it's very and also it's younger populations, though, that we have experience with the classical ketogenic diet. So I guess it is a little bit different as well, because if a parent is telling a child, you have to eat this, they're going to be more compliant. So there's that variable in that as well. But typically, if somebody has significant amount of seizures, we would typically tell them that, okay, maybe consider the classical ketogenic diet, just so this way we know exactly what you're doing. You're weighing everything to the nearest tenth of a gram. You're calculating strategically. And you never know, if there's effectiveness with the classical ketogenic diet, maybe we can slowly move them over to the modified diet, especially as they age. Maybe it's something that we can wean them and they can have a little bit more diet freedom as they get older. But sometimes there are metabolic conditions where they have to be on the keto diet for life, whether that's the classical ketogenic diet or the modified ketogenic diet. So it really all depends on what fits best with the family, what is best fitting for the child, seizure frequency, all of that, what they eat. If they're vegan, it might be more challenging to do that as a classical ketogenic diet versus a modified, because then they're going to be able to have a little bit more carbohydrates. They'll have more protein. So all of those things are kind of weighing on that decision. But at the end of the day, it's something that the neurologist will ultimately discuss with the child. And that will be kind of like a guided clinical decision, just like deciding on a medication, because that's essentially what it is.